Hey, I'm vlogging. Yeah, it's super important business. Hi guys, and welcome back to Talks with Kat. If you could give this video a like and hit subscribe, that would be awesome. Today I'm going to be talking about alcohol and particularly binge drinking. I wanted to first break down some misconceptions about alcohol, and particularly within the context of Australia and our binge drinking culture. Lots of people will tell you that drinking, rather binge drinking, is quite a central part of Australian culture. Whether it's Friday night drinks, Sunday sessions, most of our celebrations for a lot of people are around alcohol. Now, while I love wine, I love a good gin and tonic, I'm of the opinion that alcohol is something to be enjoyed in moderation, the same as it would be with junk food like ice cream, chocolate. So a lot of the reasons that are often raised in regards to saying that binge drinking is not good for you are usually things like the impact it has on your physical health or your mental health. Now, these are definitely really valid points. The feelings of anxiety that can accompany a hangover is just one example. Often there might be some kind of regret involved in relation to your actions from the previous night. And then again, in terms of your physical health, some of the things include the calories ingested during an evening of drinking, or just the general effect it has on your organs and bodily functions. The reason those arguments were never a reason why I decided to start drinking mindfully was because of this. You could say that eating a whole tub of ice cream is bad for your physical health, which it is. You could say that binge eating is bad for your mental health in certain circumstances, which it can be. You could virtually turn to any kind of behavior or activity that's done in excess and say that this isn't good for your physical or mental health. For me, what stuck was the fact that alcohol was an external thing in my life that gave me a certain feeling. And often that was a feeling of having fun and not really thinking about what was going on, and maybe making decisions I wouldn't usually make when I was sober. The more I started practicing mindfulness and working on my own mental health and self-esteem, the more I realized that those values, those really positive values of being really aware of yourself and your surroundings and checking in with yourself, were completely antithetical to binge drinking. So I'll give you an example. If I'm working really hard to get to a place of confidence where I can walk into a room and feel really at ease with myself and strike up really authentic, exciting conversations with people, then that is completely different to me needing to have a few shots before I go to a house party, for example. Now, let me just say that again. Having a few shots at pre-drinks before going to a house party, that for some, and for my old circles, is a really normal thing to do. But let's just question why it is that we do that. It's very easy to watch this and say, oh, that's not why I do it, I just love tequila shots. But for a lot of you, I'm going to ask you to be really introspective here. In an ideal world, I would be able to go to that house party without needing anything external to change how I might be feeling on the inside. I thought, how cool would it be if I could do everything that I wanted to do without alcohol? If that was talking to my crush or making people laugh, I really was striving for that to be done authentically and without the help of anything else.
Meet Penelope. Penelope is meek, shy, and terribly awkward on a typical day. Penelope's friends don't know about her struggles with confidence and insecurity. The majority of people who know Penelope know her as a loud, confident, and charismatic individual. After a few drinks, particularly strawberry-flavoured cruises, Penelope is almost unrecognisable from her usual shy self.
I started to question things like, if I need to have a number of drinks before I'm going out and meeting a group of people or going to a certain event, well, why? First of all, why do I need to do that? I started questioning this conditioning that A lot of us have, especially in our teens and early 20s and even 30s. And for a lot of people, this conditioning can carry on into the end of their life. But I started asking, why am I doing this? And when I was really honest with myself, I realized, it's because I was a bit nervous about the party. What if my crush was there? I wanted to have a little bit of liquid confidence. And the more I started to value being authentic, the more I realized that it was so difficult to maintain these behaviors around drinking, but also want these things for myself. So when I started going, I'm not going to have too much at Prees, I'm going to chat to my friends and go to the party and see how I feel then. When I took the lenses off and when I was entirely me, unencumbered, I realized that a lot of the time I actually felt a bit uncomfortable, or I wasn't a massive fan of some of the people I was around, and I started to be like, when I'm not, tipsy or slightly intoxicated, I'm starting to feel a little bit differently about my circumstances. And what that taught me was alcohol and being intoxicated actually took me to a place that wasn't entirely true to me. And as you remember in my last video, I spoke about Bob and how Bob didn't want to hang out with crickets on a Friday night. I referenced that if Bob listened to that emotion and said, okay, I'm not going to go anymore because I don't like crickets, his friends that hung out with crickets, they went this way and Bob went this way. And so when I took alcohol away, I started going this way and my old sort of habits and lifestyle moved this way. So again, coming back to this notion of not only is it good for your physical and mental health, but a lot of things are. Like having green smoothies every day doesn't mean you should do that. It was really about, how can I be true to me? How can I make these interactions with people really authentic? How can I learn to do things myself without feeling like I need a drink? I will admit it was very, very difficult, because when I took the binge drinking element away, I felt really uncomfortable. You guys know how difficult it can be when you're on one level, sober, and you're around a group of people who are on a different level and they're communicating differently because of their level of intoxication. So it obviously became harder for me to communicate and talk to people at parties if we were on different levels. One thing I noticed, and again, you might disagree, but it was the level of conversation at a lot of these kinds of events that were centered around alcohol. They were quite superficial and surface level. These sort of social interactions that mainly consisted of banter, which is great, by the way, it really is, but consisted of banter for a period of 8 hours and just mindless drinking, it stopped appealing to me. I wanted to go to a place where I could talk to someone and we could talk about things like this, or I could really get to know someone on a genuine level. And that just became more and more difficult when I stopped binge drinking. As I went this way, that part of my life sort of started to go this way. And without it being this dramatic shift, it was more just, oh hey, I won't be coming out tonight, but let's catch up for coffee. And what I tried to do was see if a lot of these friendships I had could last without it being centered around alcohol. So whether it was a coffee or an activity like going to the driving range, friendships that couldn't withstand not coping without alcohol or partying or going out showed me that they probably were quite superficial friendships. Now, there's nothing wrong with having some friendships that aren't entirely deep. Not everyone needs to be your best friend. But the fact that it was really just around a party scene, for me, I didn't really enjoy that. Also, something I realized was a lot of people do feel this way, and I did say this in my last video, there's a remarkable amount of people who feel this way, but it's not often talked about because of the fear of getting shamed or being called un-Australian. And it's quite unfair because the loudest voices, the ones, saying that binge drinking is great and it's normal and let's have a good time, often drown out the majority of people who aren't really all about it. And as society has been shifting more and more to wellness and mental health, a lot of people are coming out and saying, yeah, I actually don't drink, or I like to have non-alcoholic beer. It shouldn't be embarrassing, and actually, I think it's really brave. I think being able to socialize without being affected by alcohol or another substance is really brave. I think turning to alcohol and letting that be a central part of your socializing is actually a really lazy way to socialize. It takes a lot of courage to find a way to connect with someone on a deep level. You guys know I'm a massive fan of analogies. Some of you are probably thinking right now, it's normal, it's just what we do, it's how we celebrate. But let's just remember that everything we've learned is something that's just been conditioned and we've been told it's normal, so therefore it is. Do you see what's wrong with that? If everyone else says something's normal and acceptable, then it therefore is. That doesn't make sense. So let's just say that lamingtons are vital and central to every celebration. Birthdays, lamington bar. Weddings, lamingtons. Yeah, lamingtons. For those of you who don't know what a lamington is, it's a sponge cake and it's like dipped in like cocoa and coconut and it's got jam on the inside. Fancy a conversation that goes something like this. I'm so keen to eat so many lamingtons tonight, you have no idea, I just can't wait to stuff my face. It's weird. Hey, did you bring the lamingtons? Oh, I had like 13 lamingtons last night. Insane. You're such a lightweight. You only had 2 lamingtons and you're already bloated. You know what makes you a man? Having 20 pack of lamingtons. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So why isn't alcohol any different? Alcohol is something to be consumed. It's a drink. It's just bizarre. But the only difference is lamingtons aren't mind altering. And clearly a lot of people are turning to alcohol for that purpose. Imagine people chanting, eat it, eat it, eat it, about lamingtons. Like what? So just because alcohol is this thing that we do, I just want you to ask yourself, why do I do it? Are there certain circumstances where you drink more than others? What's different about those circumstances? The other thing I find really interesting is when you're with your best friends, you can have a lot of fun without drinking. Often you wind up having fun about something completely ridiculous that has nothing to do with having to have altered your state of mind. And I think that's what would be amazing, if we could really strive for that kind of connection and authenticity. I have had guys, particularly guys, tell me that they look forward to dry July because it's an excuse to not have to drink. That's really sad, genuinely really sad. I would hope that you people out there who feel that way could strive to have friendships and relationships where you didn't have to wait for an excuse not to drink. In the same way that drinking a green tea would relax you, doesn't mean you have 20 because you want to get to sleep that night. The point of this video is to get you to start assessing why you make the decisions you do around alcohol and see if there's anything that comes up that you don't actually like. When you're really, really happy on the inside and you're feeling really confident, getting drunk or intoxicated, it almost becomes pointless, useless. It's like, but why would I do that? And I think it would be really cool if more people could get to that place. I have seen friends who, the more confident they become, the more self-esteem they have, the more focus they have, drinking becomes less of a priority. The message I want to get out is be brave. Ask yourself, why am I actually doing this? If you stopped and thought about, why am I having another drink right now? Wait, why am I actually doing this? You might learn some things about yourself and your surroundings. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this video. I can't wait to see you again next week for Talks with Kat. If you could click like and hit subscribe, that would be awesome.